Not everybody knows this, but several of our common non-native weeds in Illinois are edible and quite tasty. So today I'm going to show you 3 weeds you can eat. But before we get started, I have to tell you to be careful when harvesting plants. These weedy plants in particular are often in disturbed areas, developed areas that are more likely to be sprayed with herbicides. So when you're foraging plants, you really have to find places that are safe and not sprayed with chemicals. And also, just a reminder, we can't harvest from protected natural places like a forest preserve. Also, you need to be confident that you've correctly identified these plants, and thankfully, the plants that I'm going to show you today have a lot of really distinct features that make them easy to identify, but still, when it comes to identifying plants that you're going to eat, you really need to be careful and confident that you've got it right, because some of the plants in our area aren't edible, and some are even poisonous. So keep that in mind. First up is garlic mustard. Garlic mustard is native to Europe, and it's one of the most common invasive weeds in our area. It likes disturbed ground, but from there it can spread into a healthy forest. Garlic mustard tends to form dense patches or monocultures, and it outcompetes beneficial native plants. So when you see garlic mustard, please pull it out. But know that even after you've pulled it, its flower heads will still develop into seeds. So you can't just pull it and leave it on the ground. Garlic mustard is a biennial, meaning it has a 2-year life cycle. So in its first year, it forms a rosette of leaves. In the second year, it then sends up a flowering stalk. Leaves of the rosette and lower leaves of a second-year plant are kidney-shaped with scalloped edges, but as the leaves go up the stalk of a second-year plant, they get smaller and more triangular. If you tear the leaves, you might be able to smell a garlicky scent, hence the name garlic mustard. And then another way to identify it is that the stalks have small clusters of white flowers with 4 petals each. The main edible parts of garlic mustard are the leaves as well as the flowering stalk. The best time to harvest garlic mustard is in the spring because as it gets hotter outside, the plant gets a lot more bitter. I like the bitter taste of garlic mustard leaves. I think it works really well as an accent in a salad. Today I'm going to make garlic mustard pesto with the leaves. And I couldn't be more excited about it because I love pesto. Garlic mustard leaves are super nutritious, and it's from nature. So I'm eating a little bit of Illinois with my pasta today, and that's awesome. I like it. It's not as bitter as I expected it to be, because on its own, the pesto is really bitter because those garlic mustard leaves just tend to be bitter to an unpleasant degree. But with the other ingredients in the pesto, with the pasta, it tastes pretty good. But if you don't like it, it's totally understandable. But it's still a really fun plant to try. Because it's an invasive plant, harvesting it and eating it is an act of conservation. So you could look at it that way too. Next, we have burdock. Burdock is commonly used in Western herbal medicine as well as traditional Chinese medicine, and it's a super common vegetable in Japan where it's called gobo. Burdock is native to Europe and Asia. Here, it's a pretty weedy plant that spreads easily. How to identify burdock? It has these kind of heart-shaped leaves that as they get older, the edges will get wavier and wavier. They form a rosette, so that all the leaves are going to be coming from the same place. And they have a deep taproot under here. So burdock root is also a biennial plant with a 2-year life cycle. In its first year, it stays in a rosette, a basal rosette like this. But the second-year plants, which are some of these bigger ones, like this is a second-year plant, will send up a flowering stalk. This is an old flowering stalk, form flowers, and then eventually form these notorious spiky balls that attach to you. Oh my gosh. Got one. And that's how they spread their seeds. Digging up burdock root in Chicago's clay soil can be really frustrating. It has, burdock has this deep taproot that snaps pretty easily when you try to pull it out. So you really have to dig really deep and around it, but it's still really difficult to do. And it's easier to harvest burdock from sites with disturbed soil. So today I'm at the McDonald farm, and there's a lot of burdock growing in this abandoned compost pile. And since we are at an organic farm, I know that there are no pesticides, herbicide use here, which can be a big concern when you're digging up, when you're harvesting things in developed, disturbed soils. So what I'm doing is loosening up around the sides with this fork. Instead of digging, loosening up first so that maybe the root won't snap. Then I'm gonna try pulling her up. Oh! There you go. Pretty good size. In the store they'd be a lot bigger and thicker, but I'm happy to have like this much root intact. Look at this! Some great burdock root harvest. Sometimes they're really hard to dig out, but the soil is dry and loose right now, so I picked a really great day to harvest some burdock root. We're gonna go make something real yummy with this. I usually simply roast burdock root in the oven, and it has a very strong, earthy, unique taste that I really adore. But today I'm trying something new. I'm making kinpira gobo, a traditional Japanese side dish. Last, we have the infamous dandelion. We all have these in our yards and see them all around our neighborhood, but since they love to pop up in lawns where they're not often wanted, they're more likely to be sprayed with chemicals. The humble dandelion is native to Europe and Asia, but it is a now well-established resident in North America. It's not considered invasive by a lot of people because it doesn't really have a negative impact on the environment, and it actually is a good source of food for bees and other pollinators in the early spring. So it actually can have some benefits too. They were so important to our ancestors that they were intentionally brought here to North America. And you can still eat dandelion greens today. You can still find them in the grocery store. You can saute them. You can add them to salads. They're super nutritious. The yellow flowers are also edible. The green sepals are bitter, so people usually pluck out the petals and then sprinkle them onto salads or ferment them to make dandelion wine. Today I'm making roasted dandelion root tea. First I harvested and then washed the roots. Then I roasted the roots until they were dark brown in the oven. Then I simmered the roots in water for 30 minutes. Dandelion root tea is definitely an acquired taste. It can be very, very bitter. At first I wasn't a fan, but now it's one of my favorite teas. You can drink it straight, or you can spruce it up with milk, honey, or spices. I'm making a dandelion mocha. So what I did is I added cacao nibs into the water with the simmering roots when I was making that decoction. Here's a fun fact. Some people drink dandelion and chicory root tea as a substitute for coffee. That's really good, but different and strange, unique. Very dandy. I hope you've learned a thing or two about these common edible weeds, and I bet you'll look at them differently the next time you see them in your neighborhood. Maybe you'll even want to harvest them and taste them. So that's all for today. Really hope you liked this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the Conservation Foundation's YouTube channel. I'm Leah, and I'll see you next time.